Now we're going to bring out our first Diamond keynote. Andrew Dugan from Lumen. He is the Chief Technology Officer. He is going to talk a little bit about busting the myths of network as a service. So we might hear some real life stories here. So come on out, Andrew. Where are you? There you are.
So as Aaron mentioned, for those that I haven't met, I'm Andrew Dugan. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Lumen. So I've got responsibility for defining our network strategy and how our network's put together and build our network-based products and services. And like Nan, I was also started in this industry when I was 6. In the last 35 years that I have been involved in the industry, I've seen a lot of buzzwords sort of come and go over time. And network as a service, is that the next potential buzzword? It is certainly a hot topic, a big topic around how our network service is going to operate in the future. And when you're defining an emerging technology like network as a service, it feels like it can be a moving target. And in an environment where you've got a moving target like that, you can really feel like it's an overhyped catch-all phrase for what people are doing, rather than what I think it is, which is an attainable model for how network services will be offered in the future. But it really begs the question, what really is NaaS? Is it a buzzword, or does it have the potential to really transform our industry? So I'm going to start by defining what I think NaaS is from a Lumen perspective. And I think our definition is really well aligned with the definitions within MEF and what Pascal and Nan have been talking about. For us, NaaS is creating a cloud-like experience around the consumption and use of our services. In the same way that cloud providers made compute and storage really easy to consume, network service providers have to do the same thing with our services. And we need to enable an environment where our customers can quote, order, receive, and manage their services through a fully digital experience. And that digital experience needs to happen in minutes, not in days or weeks or months like our industry has been traditionally used to. And so we're going to do that with a really high degree of automation. But first of all, I think when we talk about minutes and doing things in minutes, there's something we have to recognize within the industry, is that there's a lot of physical work that's required within delivery of our services. When a customer orders a service to a new location, often you've got to maybe build fiber, you have to deploy equipment, and you've got to connect things together. So I think we have to acknowledge that that physical work doesn't happen in minutes. But once the physical work is done, the configuration of that service needs to be simple and it needs to be effortless for customers. And that's what NaaS enables. And it's that automation that really enables it. And the API-centric approach that MEF is taking through the definition of APIs, the definition of standard services, is an enabler for that automation. And so I'm going to talk a little bit today about a few myths or misconceptions that I've heard frequently as I go out and talk to customers and partners in the industry around what NaaS is. So the first one is that, there's a myth that NaaS is really just about pricing models. And while pricing models do play a role in NaaS, describing NaaS as a pricing strategy or a pricing mechanism, I think, is missing some of the key aspects of what NaaS enables. So let's go through a few of those. The first one is NaaS is really a service delivery model. It's a digital experience around delivering service for customers. By abstracting the network and making it super easy to consume, you're changing the experience and creating that cloud-like experience around the delivery of services. That flexibility that then is created through that automation allows customers to change their services as they need to meet their changing needs. And that can include adding new service capabilities and features, or it can be simply scaling up and scaling down capacity, establishing new connections when they need it. It also allows them to add those new services on demand when they need them. One of the ways that we look at services as we build in this NaaS environment is that a port is really just an empty vessel to start. And you layer services on top of it. If you want the port to be an internet port, make it an internet port. If you want it to be a private connection to the cloud, make it a private connection to the cloud. If you want to add security services, just a few clicks and you can add security services. So the flexibility that's enabled through NaaS is really what the power is. But I think there is something we need to recognize with pricing. That flexibility and the capability to turn services up in minutes does enable new pricing models. It's hard to get a customer, in the current world today, you sort of sign a contract with a customer, you turn them up, they sign up to a certain service commitment, it's a certain price, a certain duration. With NaaS turning it up in minutes, you can now shorten those subscription intervals. And in fact, one of the first services that we offered in our offering within our NaaS platform is an on-demand internet service. And you can pay for it hourly if you want to. It's available in certain places like third-party data centers like Digital Realty and Equinix, or for customers that have an existing NaaS-enabled port with us. You can go activate internet on it and leave it on for an hour and get charged for an hour. Because we can turn it up and turn it down quickly, and the infrastructure is already in place and available in those scenarios, it does enable a new pricing model. Now, whether that pricing model really sticks in the industry and customers use those types of services for an hour, I don't know. But NaaS enables it. It lets us experiment with different models that way. And I think that's a key aspect of that. So while NaaS isn't pricing, NaaS does enable new potential models. The second myth is that NaaS and managed network services are the same thing. And I agree that both of these are approaches to managing and delivering network capabilities, but they have some key differences. So some of the key differences is NaaS delivers a service. It's a cloud-like subscription model that's scalable and flexible. Managed network services is a broad concept that focuses on operations of a customer's network, managing hardware and software resources for them. There's differences in flexibility and scalability as well. NaaS and its foundation is built to be an on-demand service. And so through that automation, you can deliver a degree of flexibility and scalability that may or may not be available in a managed network offer. Managed network offer doesn't necessarily mean that you have that flexibility. It could be there, or maybe not. And because you've got the ability within NaaS, and it is built on that foundation, and if you believe in sort of that port model that I described earlier, you can customize your NaaS environment through that automation, maybe more flexibly than you can through a managed service. Managed service tends to be, I will deliver this service for you with this hardware, this software, for this period of time at this fixed price. The customization that's available through a NaaS-based offer is a little bit different. And that lets you manage your cost structure as well, because you don't have to buy all the services up front through a managed services. You can add them later or remove them later. So, I do think there are clear differences between NaaS and managed services, but they can go together too. And if a service provider, like many in the room here, have the ability to provide a managed service and they base that on a NaaS capability, well, then you've got that extra flexibility. The two together can be a really powerful thing, but I do see them as being different. And the final myth is that NaaS is really only viable for small businesses. You know, I've heard that commentary a few times that NaaS is really a mid-markets thing. When we started down our NaaS journey, not started, but in the last year, as we sort of refined our strategy, we did 2 different studies with industry experts. And we surveyed customers. And what we found from both of those 2 separate sources is a very similar answer, that the market opportunity for NaaS is split 50-50 between mid-markets and large enterprise. So we think that the opportunity exists in both. And if you're going to build automation around your network and deliver your services, why wouldn't you do it for all of your services? But just to reinforce the point, here's some of the reason why NaaS applies to large enterprise as well. Whoop. I may be missing a slide, but that's okay. So, you know, there's a couple things. One is the scalability and flexibility. You know, there's maybe a misconception that that's more valuable in the mid-market space, but we think it's equally applicable to large enterprise. Large enterprise has maybe even a higher degree of changing needs as they move their applications into hybrid cloud environments or they experiment with new technologies like Gen AI. They need that same flexibility. They also need the ability to manage their costs. They've got a changing environment. And in a lot of cases, costs of network services for large enterprise is going to be a larger part of their cost structure than for mid-market. So the ability to adapt to the changing environment and manage their costs for network services over time is equally important for large enterprise. Security and compliance is another one. Large enterprises are arguably a larger target for threat actors out there. And their ability to add security services on top of their network services and do that in a flexible way, an adaptable way, is key for them. And enabling that rapid deployment to change their network is also key. So from our perspective, NaaS equally applies to our full customer base, smaller customers in the mid-market segment, larger enterprise, even government customers, because of all these needs that these larger customers have as well. So, you know, those are just some of the perspectives on you know, myths that I hear out there, that you know, that NaaS is a pricing scheme, it's really just a managed service, or that it applies to a portion of the market. We don't see it that same way. We see it as a broadly applicable capability that can enhance the value of all of our services. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share my views.